So let's talk a little bit about another, I guess, coach who left his press conference a little early. So here's Mike Tomlin's response to being asked about having just 1 year left on his contract.
Anyone?
Mike, you have a year left on your contract.
Okay, so I don't think he wanted to talk about that. I know, Rocco, you've been in more press conferences than me. Usually if the coach or player walks away before you even finish your question, that was probably not the best question to put at that time. So what are your thoughts on this?
I don't want to say, not the best question to put at that time, because you have every right to ask after a loss. For Mike Tomlin, wasn't the best time. He didn't want to talk about it, obviously, clearly. When the PR person, though, when they say, like, all right, anyone have anything else? It's like that kind of opens the door for a coach sometimes to, like, get out if they want. And I think if it was like a question not related to that, Mike Tomlin would have stayed, but he was just like, all right, we're done. We're done here. Like, I don't want to talk about it. And, like, they just got beat by the Bills. Like, I understand why he didn't want to talk about it in that point in time. And honestly, like, what is he going to say about that? Like, yeah, I want to come back. Clearly he wants to come back. His players wanted to come back. TJ Watt wants to play for him next season and beyond. Yeah. Said that. So I get why he did that, but if he would have, I don't know, I don't think it looks bad on him walking out and kind of.
Maybe that's what happened. His Uber Eats driver got there right as the question was asked. That's what happened.
Listen, I've been there too. It's like when Uber Eats is calling, when they drop your food off and they take that picture, put it out front of your house, like, you got a small window to go and get it, or they're, I don't know.
You get cold.
Exactly. So.
No, it is one of those situations where I think it did have to be asked, but it is like, I want to know what the reporter was thinking, like if they were nervous to ask it, because it was clear that, like you said, they kind of hinted with the anyone of anything else that maybe this is towards the end. This is after a couple questions. And that reporter was like, well, might as well shoot my shot with this question. And I mean, honestly, like maybe for their, point of view, that might've been the best answer you could have gotten, because him storming off, we're sitting here talking about it.
I want to say, so Alan, he said, thought that was a ridiculously dumb question to ask in the moment. Alan, love you, man. I disagree, only because Mike Tomlin, it could be, so he might, there's a chance that he doesn't coach another game at this field. I think he's coming back. I really do. But if he doesn't come back, you never get to ask that question. You never get to ask, like, okay, like, what's the deal? Could it have been phrased differently?
Yeah.
But yes, but we don't know how it was going to be phrased, because Tomlin kind of did his walk off and he's like, no, I'm tired of this. I'm not even asking it. And Bob said he could have been polite and said no comment, or just said like, I'm not talking about that, not the place and time. There's, you can look at it from both ways, both sides. So you could tell he didn't want to talk about it. He's frustrated. He's pissed off that they lost. He's a head coach. And imagine someone asking John Harbaugh in that moment what he'd do or what he'd say. Like, we really don't know. I'm sure he wouldn't be happy about it if that was the case.
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
I will say, though, kind of in like, with Alan saying it's a dumb question, I do think a little bit of the weird part is that it's not like his contract is up and it's like, hey, coach, what is your thoughts, with your contract coming up? I think it was just a little weird that they're like, hey, so you have 1 year left in your contract, because especially in the coaching universe, contracts are very much like 3 years. And then after 2 years, you just resign. So I do see from that aspect that you might just be, Tomlin saw it as you trying to create something that's not there.
Maybe they could have phrased it as a lot of questions about your future, or like, what does your future look like with the Pittsburgh Steelers, or something along those lines. I'm not going to sit here and like nitpick what a reporter asked or didn't ask, but there's different ways. Maybe it could have been phrased and maybe Tomlin would have answered it. I'm not in Mike Tomlin press conferences, so I don't know how he reacts to questions like that a lot of the time, but like we said, he didn't want to be asked about it, clearly, with this reaction.
Clearly not. No, and even, I think about, do you want to start off with, in regards to an extension, like, did you want to phrase it more positively? I feel like we're both laughing at the same thing.
Alan, no. I would be saying the same exact thing. You know what? Pump the brakes, relax a little bit. I know what you're thinking right now, and so is Joe. You know what? I'm not having any of it. So quit asking. I'm gonna pull my Nick Saban cards right now.
Quit asking. But it is something I will say as a Ravens fan. I want him fired, and it's not because I think he does a bad job. It's because he just has this voodoo magic stuff. And like, I'm just tired of it happening in our division. Like, it is really something that I've talked about with a few people, and we've had this conversation. I think this situation is holding the Steelers, unfortunately, in mediocrity. And
Mike,
it's not.
Situation? Did you say Mike the situation? Did you just call Tomlin the situation, like from Jersey Shore? You definitely just said that.
He's the situation is as in like what's going on with the Steelers right now.
Yeah,
the issue with the situation is they don't have good players, and the fact that, but they can't necessarily tank and get good draft picks, because even when you put out Mason Rudolph, Mike Tomlin is going to find a way to get them into the playoffs with 9 or 10 wins. So it's hard to tank and get these top picks for these great quarterbacks that we all see if you're not going to trade, because, I mean, a guy like Tomlin, he's going to get the most. He's almost too good to have a down year.
I know. And they're missing a quarterback at this point in time. Like when Ben Roethlisberger left, when he retired, it created a gap in talent because, you know, Ben Roethlisbergers don't grow on trees. You're not going to get a Ben Roethlisberger in every single draft. Like, they're just not simply going to be there. Like, what he was able to do with his size and his arm and just stick around. And towards the later years, you saw him kind of start to deteriorate. And it was like, all right, when are you going to hang it up, man? But that's what I think the Steelers need to do in this upcoming draft. Go after a quarterback or try to get one in free agency or make a trade, because Pittsburgh is a destination where, with the success and the history they have, people would want to play there. I think quarterbacks, it would be a great destination for certain quarterbacks to go there and play if Tomlin can get the best out of you. And JT brings up a great point. If he leaves, Harbs would be the longest tenured coach. Yes, I think Tomlin has him right now by 1 year. By 1 year. So that's all that separates Tomlin and Harbaugh between being the longest tenured coach in the NFL. Isn't that crazy to think about? Like,
especially just two guys who, you know, I remember there was a mic'd up moment, and I believe it was from this year, might have been from last year, but literally it was like comparing the first pregame conversation Tomlin and Harbaugh had to like the most recent. And like when it starts, it's like them like looking like children, walking up there like, hey, nice to meet you, all this stuff. And now cut to this time. And like Harbaugh's asking how Tomlin's daughter's doing in her classes at college. Like, he's like, yo, she's still doing that. And like, they literally have watched each other's kids grow up. They've done all this. So and it's such a